Imagine an army without fortresses, without cities, without fixed territory. Just men on horseback, riding like the wind, with short bows, wild gazes, and tattoos that told stories. That's what the Scythians were like, a nomadic, tough, resilient, and absolutely lethal people. The Scythians emerged in the Eurasian steppes, north of the Black Sea, between the 8th and 3rd centuries BC. They were not an empire like Persia nor a polis like Athens. They were a culture of horsemen, tribes united by language, lifestyle, and by their mastery of the bow and the horse. Herodotus described them as savages, but that only meant that they did not play by classical rules. They had no walls to defend. They did not form lines like the hoplites. They didn't want direct contact. They fought in their own way, fast, unpredictable, and deadly from a distance. And his reputation was feared. The Persians, when they tried to invade them, got lost in the immensity of the steppes. Alexander the Great avoided them. Even the Romans learned that it was not a good idea to face an enemy that was never where you wanted it. They were warriors since childhood. Children who grew up on horses and learned to shoot before they could walk. Bows, knives, quivers, and the remains of enemies have been found in their graves. His style was fierce, yet precise. Poetic violence on horseback. And although the world called them barbarians, they were actually bow-wielding strategists, capable of disarming much larger armies, without even getting close. But how did they do it? How did they manage to shoot so accurately, even at a gallop? Time when most archers needed to stand still and firmly planted to shoot accurately, the Scythians did it on horseback, at a gallop, and without missing. Their secret weapon was the Scythian composite bow, shorter than the Greek or Persian bows, but much more powerful. It was made of several layers of wood, sinew, and animal horn, giving it incredible strength in a compact size, perfect for mounted shooting. With that bow, the Scythians could shoot in all directions, even backwards while fleeing, a legendary technique known as the Parthian shot. Yes, the Parthians perfected it later, but the Scythians had mastered it before. It was a mix of speed, balance, and muscle memory that took years of practice, and they started as kids. The result? While you were trying to form a defensive line, the Scythians had already surrounded you and were raining arrows on you from all angles. They didn't even need to cause many casualties. They just needed to mess you up, force you to move, and make mistakes. And just when you thought they were gone, they would turn their horse in a perfect maneuver, fire another arrow into your commander's heart, and disappear once again into the dust of the steppe. They did not use heavy shields or luxurious armor. His defense was his speed and his distance. They were shadows with bows. Ghosts armed with precision. Each rider was a complete unit, mobility, offense, and evasion, all in one. Did you want to catch them? Good luck. Did you want to catch them? Impossible. Did you want to survive? Maybe, if they let you. And that way of fighting, based on constant pressure and safe distance, was not improvised. It was a strategy in itself. A city. They had no cities. Their way of warfare was totally different from that of the Greeks, Romans, or Persians. For them, the goal wasn't to resist, it was to wear down. Scythian tactics were an art of lethal patience. They were not looking for hand-to-hand combat. Instead, they preferred prolonged engagements, where they harassed the enemy with arrows, forcing them to move, break their formation, expend their energy, and make mistakes. You wanted to chase them. They were faster than you. Were you trying to ambush them? They'd already seen you from afar. You wanted to catch them. They vanished into the hills or the open plains. And all that time, the arrows didn't stop. It was as if the enemy was fighting against the wind armed with steel. A storm that surrounded you, made you bleed little by little, and never let you get close enough to hit it. This style of combat, which today we might call attrition warfare, was absolutely revolutionary for its time. It wasn't about winning, in the classic sense, but about destroying the enemy's will to keep fighting. And most importantly, they didn't need numbers. A well-mounted, coordinated, and trained Scythian force could dismantle larger, better-armed armies, without losing a single horseman. Many enemies mocked them at first, barbarians, cowards who won't stand up to you. But when the day ended, the field was covered with enemy corpses and the Scythians were still alive. This way of fighting was not only efficient. It was psychological, humiliating, and absolutely effective. And they proved it many times, facing some of the most powerful empires of their time. Do you want to know how they humiliated the Persians, the Greeks, and even unnerved the Romans? Scythians had no cities, no temples, no walls. But they made the greatest empires of the ancient world tremble. His secret? Turning terrain, distance, and time into his weapons of choice. Against the Persians. In the 6th century BC, the powerful Darius I of Persia attempted to subdue the Scythians in a major campaign. He crossed the Danube with a colossal army, expecting a quick victory. But the Scythians did not give battle. Instead, they burned grasslands, poisoned wells, and disappeared with their livestock. They made him march, without being able to attack them. Every day the Persian troops advanced deeper into empty territory, while the Scythians harassed them with arrows from afar. Dario never managed to confront them. He never had a real battle. Only tiredness, hunger, and frustration. He returned to Persia humiliated, without glory and without conquest. Against the Greeks. Although less well known in classical accounts, the Scythians also clashed with the Greek world. Through trade, conflict, and colonization, the Greeks of the Black Sea region learned to fear and respect these wild horsemen. Herodotus mentions them with a mixture of admiration and bewilderment, uncivilized, yes, but impossible to defeat. The Scythians even volunteered as mercenaries, and were so effective that some Greek cities hired them as elite guards. And the Romans? The Scythians as such were already in decline when Rome began its expansion eastward in earnest. But the fear of the mounted archer had already been sown. The Romans inherited this fear through the Sarmatians, the Parthians, and later the Huns, all descendants or imitators of the Scythian model. The idea of a light, mounted troop that shoots at you without being hit became a tactical nightmare for legions, which were made for frontal combat. The Scythians never built a lasting empire, but they left a clear message. You don't have to conquer the world, if you can make the world afraid to face you. And although the Scythians as a people were disappearing, their style of warfare lived on far beyond their generations. In fact, their most famous heirs made history on a global scale. Scythians may have disappeared as a people, absorbed by other cultures and swept away by history. But his way of waging war became immortal. What they invented, the lethal combination of bow, horse, and speed, was so effective that other peoples copied it, perfected it, and it became legendary. After the Scythians came the Sarmatians, another horse-riding people of the steppes, who adopted the use of the bow on horseback and combined it with elements of heavy cavalry. Later, the Parthians would take that same principle and turn it into a brutal tactic, as they demonstrated at the Battle of Carrhae, where they humiliated Rome with mounted archers and cataphracts. And yes, the famous Parthian shot, that maneuver of shooting an arrow backward while feigning retreat, has Scythian origins. The Births inherited directly from them. Centuries later, the world would tremble again with a name, Attila. The Huns, cultural, and possibly genetic, descendants of peoples like the Scythians, took the tactic of horse bow to its highest expression. Fast, undetectable, devastating. They are the brutal echo of Scythian warfare in a new millennium. And of course, then came the Mongols. Genghis Khan turned his horse archers into the deadliest army in the medieval world. The formula? Exactly the same one the Scythians had perfected centuries earlier. Motion shot. Attack and retreat. Constant harassment. Zero unnecessary direct contact. Even in Japan, during clan wars, samurai horse archers, Yabusame, employed techniques that shared the same logic, mobility, aim, and respect for mounted shooting as a lethal art.